Welcome to the Reroot webinar, where we get to explore so you can get connected to yourself with a capital S and find freedom to walk your true path. In today's episode, we have a very special guest. His name is Kosta Stoyanov. Kosta coaches executives, corporate leaders, and organizations, providing online content, workshops, and retreats to support his clients in getting in touch with their true purpose so they can have the positive impact they authentically want to have in the world. Kosta shares a story where once he had the life everyone admired, but he found himself in a constant state of quote unquote not enough until a major tragedy led him to realize he had it wrong all along. We will touch on many other topics which will surely leave you having a new perspective on your look on life and inspiring you to explore new ways of thinking and being which bring you happiness and freedom. If you enjoy this episode, click the like button at the bottom of the screen and be sure to subscribe to the Reroot channel. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Reroot webinar. My name is Cynthia Leconte, founder of Reroot, and I am sitting here with Kosta Stoyanov, co-founder of Uplifted Life. Welcome, Kosta.
Hey, Cynthia. How are you? Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I am so honored to have you on the show today. Kosta, we actually tried to record this a couple of days ago, and it turns out that the electricity went out because it was so windy outside. And so I will reintroduce you as just one of these people that has always kind of been omnipresent in my surrounding as somebody that does the work. And I just find you so eloquent, and I love the way you speak. When I look at your content, your videos, your messages, your posts, it's so clear, it's so concise, it's so well said.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to hear that you resonate. And I have to be honest, I mean, many of the videos that you see are eloquently done by this amazing editor. She's fantastic when she puts together a video. So the creative part, I have nothing, it's not my work, it's someone else's. So they do amazing stuff with the stuff that comes through me. But I'm blessed to have a great team, a great partner. It's not a one-man show, that's for sure. So
it rarely is, isn't it? It's like,
no, it rarely is.
Stuff that goes on in the background. People make it look so easy when we're watching stuff, and then in the end, there's a whole team behind. You're like, well, no wonder.
Oh yeah, like you see a great video and he's like, oh my God, he's so eloquent in the way he speaks. It makes so much sense if you want to know how much editing that goes on in the background. Is like, yeah.
Actually, I have an idea. Greg's also a great videographer. And yes, I know how much work goes into a video. It's like you start off recording these videos and it's like, oh my gosh, I sounded horrible and all the ums and ahs and I hesitated and I totally went beside the point there. And you spoke for half an hour and next thing you know, you got a 5 minutes, super concise. You look super professional. It's amazing. And you're like, wow,
well,
I speak like that?
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Hey, it's all good.
Oh, there you go. The truth behind the scenes. The truth behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Telling you. So Kosta.
Yeah.
How about these days, what's going on these days with everything that is happening in the world?
Unbelievable. Yeah, I know it's the world has kind of changed or stopped or come to a pause or whatever you want to call it. The last 3-4 months have been unbelievable to see everything bubbling up like that. At the same time, as I was saying last time we spoke, I'm really caught in a roller coaster of emotions where I feel super excited. I know this is why I'm here. All the dots are connecting. You can see we are ripe for a transformation. Things had to come to the surface. Nothing really changes until something changes. And so we are seeing things deconstruct right in front of us. And so it's an exciting moment when you've waited for it, when you know that this is why you're here and you know that nothing good will be unless something deconstructs, comes apart, for something new to be birthed. At the same time, you can't feel, I'll personally speak for myself. I can't not help but not feeling sad, anxious. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of loss. And so it's like the roller coaster of emotions. I've never felt like this ever. I think, it's one of those things that, during one day you can have peaks and valleys. You're feeling amazing, aligned, excited for what's to come. And then you tap into the collective and you're like, man, there's a lot of sadness and grief and pain and suffering. And it's just the beginning.
And
So
it's such an opportunity for people like us to step in and to, we practice this work, but now is like, it's such great training grounds
yeah.
for us to observe also within ourselves, not just to help other people with, which is, really what we do with this work, but really as training grounds for ourselves. It's great that you're super transparent about it, authentic about it. Like, life is not perfect. We're not
No.
perfect, happy, we got it all together kind of people. We live through the emotions as much as anybody else does, and we get to work with that and observe that and bring in the tools to be able to walk through this journey in a powerful way.
Mm-hmm.
And man, like, we can really be an example for people by doing that. Also, being faced with our own fears, our own sorrows, looking that straight in the face, straight in the eye, to be able to break through it in the other end. Because really, I've been through it myself, where, and this happened, I think fortunately it happened at the beginning of this whole thing, when I kind of woke up to, oh my gosh, I have no work, and the company closed down, and all of a sudden there's no income. And I was faced with my own fears in regards to that, and broke down and cried, and had to, called out my, let's call it my posse, my tribe, a few people to talk it out and to really get to see the light throughout it. And I remember crying in front of Greg, going, Greg, I know there's something really good at the end of this, but I really can't see it right now. It's like,
Yep.
I'm full on tears, crying, saying this. And in the end, I knew my commitment was to see the light, and to live in that space of where I can be in a space to support other people. Like, who do I want to be in all of this? What do I want to project out into the world going through this? And it had to be authentic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, now more than ever. I've also realized I've been through some, massive amount of reconstructions in my own personal life. So if I look back at my own personal history, I just turned 50 this year. So if I look back and I look, maybe beginning my mid 20s, I mean, even if I look at my childhood, much of who I am now has come from the pain and suffering and breakdowns and challenges of my past. So if I look back and I say, I've been bumped, bruised, scarred, down, out, back up, over and over and over again, and I'm still here. And if I look back, those are the events and the situations that have made me the person and the man that I am, the father that I am, the husband that I am, the son that I am, the friend that I am, the coach that I am. So if I look back, I would not change a minute of that personally. And so this is just one of those other moments in my personal history, but I think in global history, that if we take it as an opportunity and know that this is an opportunity to step up and grow and to evolve into the next level of, of who we are meant to become, then it's an opportunity. And so, my last major breakdown was in 2008, where I lost basically all of our savings when the stock market crashed and everything tumbled. That was disastrous time in terms of in terms of my finances. We had to reorganize things. It was really, really, really rough to work all your life to save, to put that money aside, to build what was being built in my business at that time, and to see it all dwindle away in the space of a few months. So through that chaos, I am the man that I am now. I've built what I have built now. I've learned what I've learned because of those trials and tribulations. And so that allowed me to pivot my life in such a monumental way, because it forced me to go inner, like to go inwards and to figure out, who am I? Like really fundamentally, who am I? Not who I pretend to be or who I want to be or who I show to the world. Like, who am I deep down inside, behind this facade, behind this label of an entrepreneur back then? And what do I truly want? And I realized that I was busy hustling, climbing the wrong mountain, climbing the wrong mountain. And so that was an opportunity for me to kind of, touch base and find my way back up, but to where I truly wanted to be. And so this is a moment in time for people to this, to do the same.
Yeah.
I mean, for all of us to kind of, check in and say, who am I? What do I really want? What do I value? Am I actually in alignment with my soul, with my heart, with my best self, with my most authentic self? If not, where did I lose my way? If not, what can I do differently? What do I value? What's important to me? And are the people, the things, the choices that I'm making in alignment with who I want to become and who I want to be and the life that I truly want to experience? Not what the world out there tells me that I should be experiencing and creating and wanting, right? Not what we've been socialized or, conditioned to want and run after. What does my soul of soul say? What does that, little voice deep down inside say? And so I've had to do this work many times over to kind of get in touch with really who I am. This is another opportunity to do it at an individual level and at a collective level. So I think we're being called forth to kind of take a look at our own personal bullshit, take a look at our collective bullshit and see, are we in alignment with the best possible life that we can create? And if not, use it as an opportunity to pivot.
Absolutely. My gosh, have we ever been seeing our inauthenticities these days?
Yeah.
Because I have.
Yeah.
So do you feel that if you kept on going the route that you were going prior to all of those breakdowns,
Mhm.
do you feel that you would have ended up being a happy man or as happy as you are today?
No, not a chance. I mean, there's no way, because I was so externally focused. And so my happiness, my freedom, my sense of self-worth, my sense of achievement, I was conditioned, like most of us, to go get it outside of me. Meaning, like, once I got this much money, once my body looked this way, once my square footage in my home was like this, once the plaques on my wall were this way, once the world met my expectations, then I would be happy, safe, complete, aligned. But that's a losing game. Life out there is not meant to meet your expectations. I don't know if you've noticed that once you've gotten where you wanted to go and now you're happy for that momentarily, chocolate high where you're like, yeah, I made it. Then there's another problem. Then there's another issue. Then you want something more. Then there's another craving. Then you measure up to someone who has more than you. Then what you have falls apart. And so you come to that realization, at least I came to that understanding after recognizing that I was never going to be happy from the outside in. It was an impossible journey. I was going to lose that. But yet I was conditioned, programmed to operate that way.
Aren't we all?
Just go hustle, go get what you want. I don't know, get the degree, get the wife, get the body, get the car, get the, I don't know, whatever it is that you're running after, that you believe that will bring you some sort of validation, meaning, in your life. And then you're going to be happy. And then you're not. I mean, I was also conditioned to believe, like, find your passion, find what you love to do, and ultimately you're going to be happy. What a crock of shit that was. Because I was doing exactly what I loved, from even before the executive coaching and the leadership coaching and all that Uplifted Life is now. I was a personal trainer. Before, I had a personal wellness company. I worked with executives. I worked with a lot of people. I built up my company. We were making good money. I loved what I did. I was on purpose. I helped people. But reality is that was all external. As soon as something didn't match my expectation in that world, then I would feel heavy, contracted, misaligned, unhinged. And wait a minute, like, once I found my passion and made money through my passion, wasn't I supposed to be happy and peaceful? That wasn't the case. Yes, obviously it helped a lot, but it wasn't the thing that was going to make me happy or ultimately sovereign or free. And so, and so I realized genuinely that if I don't develop the skills or to be happy from the inside out, and let's just call them skills because you have to work at that, then I was always going to be at the mercy of what happens outside of me. And to me, that was kind of rang in my, psyche as, you're not sovereign. You're basically a prisoner. You're a slave because you're working from the outside in. And the world is not meant to meet my expectations. People are not meant to meet my expectation. The world or reality is not meant to make me happy. And that was a huge wake-up call. So to answer your question, no, I wasn't going to go. I definitely wouldn't be the man that I am now, or happy or free. I think that's what I feel the most now, more than ever. Sovereign, free. Shit happens, I have the ability to readjust. Things meet my expectations, wonderful. They don't meet my expectations, that's okay.
You speak about freedom. That's my language. That's my my little, keyword also. It's probably one of the most important things to me in my life is my freedom, and I'm
Sure.
hearing it is for you too. I also, in everything that you said, you say the word expectation a lot.
Yeah.
And I know that expectation is kind of a killer of happiness or a killer of satisfaction.
Yeah.
And what did you have to change, or what shifted, not change, I'm not going to use that word. What shifted inside of you? You depended on the outside world to make you happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you shifted that
Yeah.
into what?
Well,
In other words, what created that breakthrough for you, where you're like, you know what? Yes, okay, we say you got to live from the heart, live in the present moment.
yeah. No.
And how did that shift for you, and how do you put that in words, and how did that impact your life today?
Yeah. For me, it really began, I think, fundamentally in 2008 was the last straw, was the last real big bop upside the head to kind of say, wake up, buddy. What the way that you see reality is not the way that reality really is, the way that you've been conditioned, what you've been running after. And I was kind of almost nudged to create that space and take inventory. Just look at the truth. Has anything that you have accomplished ever brought you lasting happiness? Or has it sooner or later bent you? Like, it didn't meet your expectations. You had, like, I mean, let me give you an example. Growing up, I really had a weight issue. I was a young obese kid, right? And so I was teased, and that was a lot of the pain that I suffered had to do with two things. One, I couldn't speak, meaning I stuttered so badly that I couldn't even align a sentence. Like, really fundamentally, if you were to ask me to introduce myself, just saying Costa, it would give me a panic attack. So, like, if I had to go to a room and I had to introduce myself, or at school, if I had to read a sentence or whatever I needed to do, I would really have a panic attack, an anxiety attack, full blown. So just to introduce myself, it would take me like really, I couldn't get a word out. And so at the age of 13, just to make a little, set some context, at the age of 13, my mom hired a speech therapist to correct this issue. I was an overweight kid, really disassociated from myself. Like, I would not even introduce myself as Costa. I would introduce myself as Jimmy, because J's would roll off my tongue much easier than K's. So
Wow.
think about not loving yourself, or not even embodying your body, or not being in your body, or identifying with who you really are. So separated from who I am, because, completely disconnected, hated myself. And my mother hired this speech therapist. I would sit in front of the mirror, and one of the exercises that he would make me do would be like, calm down, breathe in from the nose, out from the mouth, focus on what it is that you want to say, look in the mirror, and just look at your lips and let it come out. And I would have to do this amongst other things, but that was my primary training, was to really sit down and be mindful of what's going on inside my head, because I was going at 1,000,000 miles a minute, and be present, be still, focus, breathe, and get it out there. And I would sit in front of that stupid mirror and cry every afternoon after school, because this was the work that I had to do. Little did I know that that was the beginning of my meditative practice. That was the
Wow.
beginning. Like, he didn't introduce it as this is meditation. I don't even think that he knew that this was part of mindfulness back then. I mean, we're talking about, God, 40 years ago, maybe, like 35 years ago. And so that that pain of not being able to speak and not being able to put a sentence together and hating myself, not being able to communicate with the world. So think about being trapped and frustrated inside your body. Not only were you trapped inside your head because you couldn't get it out, but trapped inside a body that I didn't appreciate at all. And so, but hours and hours and years of practicing, I became really centered and grounded and present. And my brain was more or less being trained to do the work that I'm doing now. Isn't that crazy? But never would I've connected that years ago.
I
And
can
then,
imagine.
yeah. And
Like,
I mean, now I earn my livelihood, by not shutting up. I mean, the opposite. I mean, you would have to really, really, really convince me to say something, because you would probably find me at the back of the room hiding from everyone, to the point where now, like I just don't shut up. Literally, it just keeps on going, right? And so, and then having deep issues with my body. I was maybe 13, 14 years old, 185, 190 pounds at 5'7", 5'8", right? I mean, that's a pretty big kid.
mm,
My nickname was Porky Pig in school, which is a cartoon character, right? Like a little
that
piggy
stutters.
that stutters. So that was me. That was my childhood growing up. And that was a lot of trauma. That was a lot of pain. I grew up in a neighborhood where it was rough and tumble. So I used to really get picked on and abused and bullied, right? And so then to take that person and to take that pain and to take that breakdown and then recognize that I became a personal trainer, that I went into psychology, I went into exercise science. I got 2 degrees in from university. And so I brought my burdens and my breakdowns and my scars and my pains, and they became my breakthroughs. Like if you really, they became my blessings. And so I quickly came to realize that what breaks you down has the opportunity to build you up. I also realized, though, that if you're only going to feel good about yourself when the external world meets your expectations the way that it should be, then I'm always going to be unhappy. Like I really took a moment in time to recognize that this was not going to work because it never worked. I couldn't speak, I spoke. I was overweight, I got in tremendously good shape. Like my body fat percentage got down to like 9%. The time that it went up to 11%, I was pissed off.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Let's
I know
say,
what you mean.
like I couldn't pronounce my name. Now when I listen to myself speak, sometimes I stutter and I can get down on myself because, Kosta, you're stuttering again, right? And so I realized that if I was really going to be happy, I had to let go of what was happening outside of me as the source of my happiness. I really recognize deep down inside that I can impact and influence externals. Impact and influence. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't work. Sometimes it'll meet my expectations, sometimes it won't. But I have 100% the ability to moderate what's happening inside of me. And so I have the ability to cultivate happiness, peace, joy, calmness, neutrality, whatever, no matter what situations I face out there. And the moment that I recognized that, like it wasn't just like a belief or a knowing, like it was just almost this aha moment that penetrated every cell of my being, that this was the journey towards true sovereignty or true freedom. I wasn't going to get there in any other way because I would have to sooner or later relinquish the world out there. Like whatever I accumulated was one day going to become someone else's, or it was going to leave. My body one day might be this great little body, right? And then one day it's not going to be this great little body. Like I'll do my best to maintain it and to feed it well and to do what I need to do, but I need to let go of trying to control it to be the way that I want it to be, because aging was going to be a problem, And so just by looking at the evidence, I realized that this was not the way to go. And I also realized that a lot of the coaching out there, or a lot of the spiritual teachings out there, trapped you in that belief that now you have these magical powers, now you know the secret, now you know how to visualize and manifest, and now you can bend the world the way that you want it. And good luck, right? Because the moment that you cannot bend the world the way that you want it with your will and your intention and your vision boards and your mantras, now you're going to think you're broken. I'm not doing it right. There's something wrong with me because the world is not meeting my expectations. Well, it was never meant to meet your expectations at at 100%. You are able to influence and impact it, but why would you want it to bend at your mercy? Isn't that dominating? Like, isn't that a dominating philosophy? I want to dominate my reality. I want it to bend to what I want. And so even that fell apart for me. So it just became highly evident that I'm going to train myself. I'm going to practice to go within and to learn how to create state changes within myself, no matter what the world out there presented me.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting to create something, right? Like clearly
No,
you're
no, no,
saying,
no.
well, we're trying to bend and all that. And I understand what you're saying. I've also kind of looked at that for myself and seeing, and lots of hidden stuff has popped up for me, which is, what is it that's running my life? Just like what I'm hearing for you, what was running your life, or what determined, let me put it this way, what determined your happiness or your satisfaction was when you're not stuttering and your body's in a good place, then you're in a good place. And if your body's starting to not be where you want it, or you stutter a little bit, well, now all of a sudden your happiness goes along with it.
Right.
And I had that realization, actually, that was my big aha moment at the beginning of this whole period, was that when my finances went, my breakthrough was that I really actually saw that my financial situation determined my happiness, my own self-worth as well. If I was doing okay financially, I was good. If I wasn't doing so good, well, then I was feeling a bit self-conscious and I'm not as good in a mood. I'm not as happy. And so I was always constantly trying to, and taking courses and doing the workshops and doing the mantras to have financial abundance. But that was also because that's what's running my life. There's nothing wrong with financial abundance, but it's the idea, or the hidden factor, that is what was determining my state of being and my self-worth and my self-confidence.
Exactly.
And
The
it was,
moment that you need it, the moment that you need it to feel complete, is the moment that you might get it, but it's going to go away. And
yeah.
I'm a prime example of that. I made a lot of money before 2008. I mean, like, I made a lot of money. I was really happy. If somebody looked at me from the outside in, they would have said, I'm living the life, doing what I love, perfect health, amazing wife, amazing family. But what was driving me was not enough. Not enough. You make this much, not enough. You get more, not enough. And so it was basically the imprinting of my childhood. I grew up in a family where we had my parents declared bankruptcy twice. There were a lot of issues with money. There was a lot of pain and suffering. And so my programming was, well, the root of pain and suffering is finances. Make money, you'll solve that problem. And so I was driven by that. I was obsessed by, making money. And I did money. I made money the right way. I made money by helping people. And so I was what you would call in alignment. The problem was, again, I'm not sovereign. I'm not free. I'm not complete. I'm not safe until I have X amount. And that was all a lie. It was just a program, because I made that. And then I still didn't feel safe. I even made more than that. I still didn't feel safe and complete. And so that was the trap, until I finally realized that the problem was the neediness. The problem was that unless I had what I wanted to have, I wouldn't feel safe. I wouldn't feel whole. I wouldn't feel complete. And that was what was being reflected back to me. We live in a reflective universe. Basically, you get reflected back to you what's at your core. So if your core is only aligned and whole when you have what you want to have, then you're not complete. And so, you'll get it and then it'll deconstruct, or you'll never get it. So it's like you're always running after that carrot.
Yeah.
And that's to me, it's like living in a prison. It doesn't smell like being free. It doesn't smell like being sovereign.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is not going to work. And so I had to really let go of all of those things. I had to let go, and I had to be happy. Like, when I first started doing this work, I mean, talk about a jump, right? In 2008, I lost all of our savings, basically down to like 90, like 10% of what we had. We came close to selling the house. Luckily, we didn't have to sell the house. And just to put you in 2010, I I closed the old company, which it was. I mean, this was my calling to do this work. It was like I was being called and pulled forth to do this work. I didn't even know what this work was. I was a
Mm.
personal trainer, corporate wellness coach. I was helping people lose weight and get in shape and teaching them how to eat. I had no idea about any of these things like, spiritual coaching, spiritual teaching. I didn't even know what spiritual journeying was all about. I didn't even know any of that. But to make a long story short, in 2010, when after I kind of woke up and I knew that this was what I knew this is the direction I was going in, I just couldn't define it. The first year, I think I made something like $13,000. The second year was just a little bit more. I gave more sessions away for cookies and cakes than I did for an income. I didn't even know what to call myself, but I definitely knew that I was happy and I was free, and something about me was totally in alignment. Like I didn't care about the money anymore. I didn't care about what was coming in. I truly cared about sitting with that person, allowing what needed to come through, and helping them in any way that I can genuinely. And if that represented like a little bit of money coming in so I can buy groceries, fantastic, right? And so I just allowed life to direct me in the direction in which I needed to go, not in the direction that I wanted to go, but it's like, okay, guide me. Where do I need to go next? What do I need to do? What do I need to know? And that guidance, whatever you want to call it, has never let me down. It
Mm.
always has provided. It has always opened doors. And so my greatest accomplishment in the past 10 years was to get myself out of my own way and to say to myself, and I've even coached people, to say, look, if get into a state of being that if you need to go work at your local Dunkin' Donuts or Tim Hortons or whatever, and that's the way you're going to provide, then be okay with it. Like if I have to go work at the local grocery store, I will. Still at 50, if I need to go and work at the local grocery store, I will be the best bag boy. I will. I swear, I genuinely will, because I
I
don't.
believe you.
I genuinely will show up the best version of me, the best team player. I will shed light. I will be a source of playfulness. And I don't really care. If I had to sell what I have, not a problem. Been there, done that. No worries. And so genuinely, I can honestly say that I'm free. I'm happy because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what my externals look like. And
Mm.
so the irony of that is that I have plenty. It just doesn't stop. It keeps on coming and coming and coming. And it's like, wow, this is the magic. Get out of your own way, be the best version of you, be content with where you are, be aligned with something greater. And then obviously get up and do what you need to do, but not with this neediness. And if you don't have the neediness, whatever it is, financial abundance, love, appreciation, just comes into your life. You don't even have to go out and get it. You don't have to go out and hustle like with this like drive, go get it. No, it's like do what you
Yeah,
need to do, right?
that's a
Do it.
big one.
Yeah, do what you need to do. I mean, you're not going to live an abundant life in terms of, let's say, finances if you're sitting on your sofa eating Cheetos and watching Netflix all day. It's just not going to happen. But if you do what you do but the energy inside of you is open and light and playful, watch what happens. But that takes
Absolutely.
training. It takes, you need to evolve into that space. It just doesn't quite happen. Like I've invested hours and hours and hours of training into reposition myself internally. Remember to remember, Costa. Practice, meditate, sit, ask for guidance.
And do you bring people to that point, or do you find that it's something that it just happens when you're ready for it?
No, I mean, you bring people to that point by getting them to become aware of the obstacles and helping them process them and helping them move, and you guide them, you support them in that journey.
Mm.
You help them become aware of the things that they need to prune out of their life, whether it be paradigms, beliefs, things, people. And so their external terrain and their internal terrain can be primed to this awakening. I don't cause the awakening. I just prepare the terrain. Like, for example, if you plant a cucumber seed in your backyard, The cucumber is going to do its thing. You just need to prepare the terrain. If you don't water it, or if you don't give it sunlight, or if you don't give it the right space, nothing's going to happen. You can plant all the seeds that you want. If you don't take care of the environment by which that cucumber seed could become a cucumber, nothing is going to change, you know? And so my job is to prepare the terrain, the internal terrain and the external terrain, whether it be with an executive that I'm working with, a leader that I'm working with, a corporation, an individual. My job is that. Just clear the terrain, clear their vision, get them to see clearly. The seed that they want to plant is theirs, not mine. And the seed will sprout because seeds sprout. You know, you just need to do the work as the garden keeper. You need to tend to your garden to make sure that one, you're planting the right seeds. Two, you're putting your attention on the right seeds. Three, you're removing the weeds, you know, and then you just let nature do what nature does. We live in a magical, miraculous, abundant universe, reality.
And it's amazing sometimes how long it takes, or I'll just say how long it takes to get to a certain point. You know, sometimes like I'm still discovering and I'm going, my gosh, like my whole life, this has been running my life, that my whole life, this whole underlying unconscious story was running my life. And letting go of that is serious. It's really the most incredible instant feeling of freedom, of ease, of just bliss almost, especially when you live that contrast. And I just find it amazing that we walk our journey, our lives, with all of these things that we hang on to. And I also find it amazing how we're so afraid of letting them go. Even when it does appear, for some reason, we still don't let go until we have the right training, the right space. Like you said, our terrain is right for us to finally let go. And when we do, it's going like, why did I hang on to that for so long?
Well, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
And when you've been conditioned to see the world in a completely different way, you don't know. And I believe that some of the face plants that we encounter, the breakdowns are just like, wake up. It's the life's way of telling us individually and collectively, you're moving in the wrong direction. So whenever there's pain, pain is not the problem. When we have pain in our personal lives or in the collective, it's showing us that there needs something to be addressed. Something needs to change. If when your knee hurts and there's pain there, that's not a problem. It's telling you, don't do this with your knee.
Yep.
Quit doing this, do this, ice it, do something, take time off, let it heal, address your knee.
In other words, you're, no pun intended, but you're not in alignment.
No, exactly.
So
You're not
just want to shift something and bring some TLC into the equation, or open your eyes and look at how are you moving wrong, or how are you
exactly.
Something
needs to change. And so when you kind of understand that, and you use pain as an indicator, you can grow from it.
Absolutely. I'm on the same page.
And if I look at my personal life past and now, things that come up that need to be addressed happen through some sort of pain.
And what's great also in this training is, at first you hit these, let's call them rock bottoms or breakdowns, and you're dealing with something and it's painful and it's tedious and it's frustrating and all of the emotions. The more we do this, the more we train ourselves to see that when we're in, let's call it a lull, for me at least, my thought is like, okay, there's something for me to get here, as opposed to kind of bathing in that lull. It's like, yeah, okay, I can look at my emotions and I can live them fully, but also knowing that there's something great for me to get. In fact, the harder I hit the ground, the bigger I jump out of it. The bigger the breakthrough I get at the end of it. And that's usually the rule of thumb for
Yeah.
me. And when you're used to, or when you get used to that, those downs, and working through those downs, and even though you don't see it in the moment, seeing the light, you know that there's a light to find.
Mhm.
You just got to look.
Yeah. Yeah. I've come down to this almost like a process, right? Whenever I'm feeling, unless there's a physical issue, like a physical emergency where I would not have the time to process it, like there's something really happening, call 911, do something. There's something for me to do. And so if there's something for me to do, there's no problem. Like there's a stimulus, there's an event. Now it's an emergency, it's threatening, it's a problem. If I have access, if I have the ability to do something, then I don't even have time to lull it over. It's like you go into reaction mode, you go into quick response mode. If I have time to lull it over, then I realize I've conditioned myself, trained myself to say, well, it's not an emergency. You have time to think about it.
Mm.
Like if this was a real emergency, I've been through some, call 911, do what it is that you need to do, take action. If I have time to think about it and mull it over, then it's not a real emergency. So there's a light bulb that pops up that says, wait a minute, this is a mind-made issue here.
Mm.
And so if it's a mind-made issue, then the next step to that is, in order for me to be feeling the way that I'm feeling, to have these emotions inside my body, these sensations inside my body, what's the story? What narrative have I just overlaid on top of the event? Where is my mind? Where is it going? You look at your mind like a third party. It's like a computer. Where are you taking me? You're taking me some sort of past. You're taking me some sort of future. You're making an issue out of the present moment. You're baking some sort of story that is, chaotic. What are you doing? And so the moment that you take the time to actually take a look at what's going on inside of you, because the situation is what the situation is, you're overlaying a story on top of it. You're interpreting it in a way that's now is giving you the emotional feedback. Take a look at your story and either like pay attention to it or organize another story. Is there a possible way of looking at the situation that is more productive, that is more playful, that is lighter, that is more positive? If there is, do it. Because that is what being the creator of your experience is all about. Finally, at the end, that's the ultimate secret that people need to know. If you want to know the secret of life, you are a storyteller. Your whole life is a story. Shit happens, you get to create stories over the shit that happens. Pain happens. I'm not saying that pain doesn't happen. Stuff happens to cause pain. If you mull the story over and over and over again, that's called suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So suffering is your inability to let go of the old story, of a story that you're rehashing and overlaying on top of something that happened. Right? So something happened, you were hurt, and you have pain, there was loss, there was grief, you lost a loved one. You have to go through that grieving cycle, and you have pain and loss and sadness, and all those emotions are wonderful. But if those emotions lead you to depression,
Mm.
and down that spiral into total paralysis, then what you've done is you've created a story around that loss that has put you into such a deep corner that now it's hard to get out of. And because, we know the opposite. We know people that lose, someone that they love.
Yep.
They go through the grieving cycle and they will never feel not sad. Like that sadness is always there. But somehow they manage to turn the corner and to keep on going. Or they make sure that that person's death wasn't in vain. They take that event and they do something positive with it. Or they take that event and they make it neutral, but they don't allow themselves to go down that slippery slope into depression, anger, negativity, toxicity. What did that person do? The only thing that that person actually did was they overlaid a different story around and over that loss. Does that make sense? That is so profound.
Absolutely.
That is so
Absolutely.
profound to understand. Like, if I can honestly say that something scarred me years ago and really was painful, it was a tough time, what that person did or that event of my life really broke me back then. But now 20 years here, I can honestly say, Cynthia, you know what? I'm healed from that. That does not affect my present moment anymore. It wasn't that event didn't happen. It wasn't that that person didn't do what they did. It's right now, what I managed to do was overlay a story around that event that happened 20 years ago that allows me to honestly say now that I'm free from that story. I'm no longer scarred.
Yep. Like you lived the pain. Like, yes, it was painful.
Yeah.
You were probably angry. You were probably hurt, and
Mhm.
you are no longer.
Right. But what did you do? You know, the important part is that the event didn't change. Even the person didn't change. The person might be the same person with the same perspective that they had
Yep.
back then. But what happened is I changed. The situation didn't change, I changed. But what changed? The story around what happened changed. And when you recognize that it's all a story, then you realize that your power of creation is the stories that you tell, the words that you put together.
The sentence that keeps coming to mind to me is the Wayne Dyer. You know, when you change the way you think, when you change the way you
Where you
see
see
things,
things. Right.
the things
Yeah.
around you change.
Right. But it's so important to tie that, to connect the dot, that even what he means through that quote is the only way you can change the way you see things is you change the story and the labeling around what you're looking at.
I guess that's what you're seeing, really, isn't it?
Right. Exactly. What you're seeing is a narrative.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a story. It's a bunch of words. It's that you're overlaying on top of a situation, on top of an event, or on top of something that now
Hmm.
gets you to see it or live it and experience it in a different way.
Right.
That is the ultimate secret of creation. You create by the stories that you put together.
So essentially, like you and I could be watching the exact same event
Right.
unroll in front of our eyes. Let's
Right.
call it something that is shocking. Let's
Hmm.
and you can have your story when you go out and tell your friends about what happened, and I'll have my version of what happened, and they can be two completely different stories.
Right. And you will experience it differently, and I will experience it differently. And so the way that I experienced what happened because of my story now creates contraction in me, creates like a little bit of contraction in you, but you process it and you overlay a story that's more positive. Now,
Mm.
all of your interactions that you will go on will be imbued with your openness and your playfulness. All of my interactions and all of my choices will come from a place of contraction and regret and toxicity. Now, what do you think is going to come back to me when I engage with the world and with other people from that mindset or from that perspective or from that frequency or vibration? I will get more of the same. And then I will say, look, my life is like this because of the event that happened to me in 2008. And you will say, well, my life is a positive one of what happened to me in 2008. What, I made amazing people. I made great friends. I made great partnerships. I found new clients. Yes, it was tough. It broke me back then. The reality is, it's the best thing that could have happened to me. I look back and say, my God, what happened to me back then really broke me, and I'm bad luck, and the universe doesn't love me, and there is no God, and there is no this, and it's just like, your story of all positivity is a bunch of bullshit. Not recognizing that the life that I'm living is a reflection of the energy that I'm holding, and the energy that I'm holding is the reflection of the story that I held on to.
Yeah, and I think that's the distinction between somebody who lives a tragedy. So I'm not even going to name it, but think of the worst thing that can happen to a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And you have, you know, one person that can happen to, who will it will destroy their lives, and another person who the same event will happen to, they will change the world with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And if I go back, that is the reason why I went into psychology.
Mm.
Why I began to study psychology. I've always been fascinated with that. What is it that gets two people to experience the same thing? One can kind of face it and say that sucked, but makes it into something better and goes on and flourishes. And someone lives the same event and then goes on to become bitter and goes into suffering and pain and then causes pain to others. And so that was really at the beginning of my curiosity, is like, what happens there? Because both people experience the same thing. What happened? And one of the first books that I read way back when was Man's Search for Meaning from Viktor
Mm.
Frankl. And that was a game changer for me. Like, I realized that, that was fun. Like, that was a real game changer for me. It still is. That I always go back to that, to that one truth. Situations are, you get to choose your attitude. Situations are the way that they are. You get to choose the way you see the situation. You get to choose the story that you overlay. And there was a whole branch of psychotherapy called logotherapy, Logo therapy. So logotherapy. So logo in Greek, and I happen to be Greek, is word.
Right.
So basically the whole branch of psychotherapy is based on, we create our experience, we create our reality, because that's what reality is. It's an internal experience based on the stories that we put together, based on the language that we use, based on the words that we put together. And so there's a reason why words are called, you spell a word. Spelling, you cast a spell by
Wow.
the words that you use. You sentences become your sentence,
Your
your life sentence,
sentence. I didn't hear
right?
any of that before. This is
And
great.
yeah, so when I began understanding that and connecting those dots, I realized, wait a minute, there's a fundamental truth here that nobody took the time to explain to me. There's a reason why in scripture one of those first sentences is, at first there was the word, and the word was God.
Mm.
So if God is a creator, and if the word was God, aren't words used to create?
Just more proof that we are master creators
Right. And then
just by word.
you're thinking, what is it? It's a bunch of words together. And so you are continuously creating your reality based on the words that you use. And
Mm.
then the words that we use come from the way that we've been programmed. Right. And so, and then you just, you just kind of backtrack it, reverse engineer, and you realize that's where your power lies. Your power doesn't lie in trying to bend the world out there. Your power lies on creating the world out there internally, with your thoughts and your sentences and your interpretations, and then the world out there becomes what it's meant to become.
Absolutely. And that works on a collective as well.
Yeah, it does. Everything that we see out there has been created twice. Once in someone's internal landscape, and then it takes, it manifests out there.
Mm.
Our internal landscape creates emotions. Our emotions lead to choices or non-choices. Our choices then become actions or non-actions, and that is what we see out there. And so when you do the reverse engineering, it's like, I don't want to waste all of my energy trying to, go out there and try and bend the out there. Let me figure out how to go inwards and engineer what's happening inside of me. If I engineer what's happening inside of me and I master that, the external world will be what it will be. But most often than not, I will be at peace because I've mastered the inner world, the spiritual world, the non-physical world, all that stuff, the inner dimension, whatever you want to call it. It's all mind. It's all inside of you. And so if you look and you study some basic wisdom teachings, the ones that have stood the test of time and the ones that are the most simple and basic, they all point to this one fundamental truth. And once I grasped that, then it was, I'm going to put all of my life in the service and the training of mastering my inner world.
Outstanding. Yep.
And I mean,
That's
have you ever seen the movie The Matrix?
yes.
There's
Yes.
one little part in there where Neo is trying to bend the spoon in front of him.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's trying to bend the spoon, and the little kid says, well, you'll never bend the spoon that way until you know the truth. And Neo asks, what is the truth? And the kid says, there is no spoon. Stop trying to bend the spoon, bend yourself instead.
Wow.
Right? And so when you read that, when you look into that movie, that's like a documentary, basically. It's not a movie, it's a documentary of telling you what reality is all about, hidden in chaos and action. But reality is that there are many fundamental truths inside that one movie, and that part being the major truth. There is no out there the way that you think that there is an out there. And so stop trying to bend the world out there. Stop trying to bend the spoon. Put all of your attention on bending yourself, which basically means, again, what I've been kind of pointing to, take a look at the stories that you're creating.
That is outstanding. It's so amazing how you kind of created this flow with all of those concepts. Can I call them concepts?
They're truths.
Or truths? Yeah.
At the end, you can't. I love truth. the closest that I can to get to truth. And how do I know that I'm getting close to the truth? It's simple. It's very, very simple. It's quite basic, really, if you really think about it. When you hear it, you're like, and you really can't argue with it. You know, like if you put it into practice, then you'll realize that it's closest to it's as close to the truth as possible, because
Well, it's
it
a
does create
truth.
change.
It's a truth, right? Because the truth is what we create, is what we just discussed.
No, I mean, this is a fundamental truth that you can't really get like, you can't really
Oh, I see what you mean.
deny.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things, you know, that you can't deny that the fact that what's going on inside of you is creating the way that you're feeling, is creating your experience. And I'm not talking about like trauma and like
Mm.
trauma is something that happened to you when you had no way of defending yourself. Like, something happened to you that was a trauma, something horrific. And then every cell of your being goes into survival mode and contraction mode. And then you relive that trauma over and over and over again, because you got so shocked. Your body and your brain, your biology and your neurology didn't know what to do that with that event. And so it went into lockdown. It went into survival mode, right? And so that happened. And then what does somebody do when they get out of the trauma, when they heal from that? Fundamentally, what do? They change the stories around the event. They do work that allows their body and their brain to process that they're no longer in danger. They can do energy work, they can do release work, they can do breath work, which is basically allowing the body to pay attention and say, there is no trauma, there is no lion and tiger.
It's recreating the story around what happened.
Yeah, fundamentally, you're recreating the story around, and it might take years, and it might take never. I mean, you might never get on the other side of your trauma. But reality is, what are you doing? In some way, shape, or form, you're changing the story around what happened. And then you're also doing the body work. So your body can also say, there's no danger here. There's no trauma. There's no lions and tigers here. And that may take years and years and years of processing. But in essence, what you're doing, you're changing the way that you're looking at the event, or you're basically making peace with it. And, you know, that's how powerful this work is. And if you realize, what are your emotions? They're the byproduct of your thinking. What's your thinking? It's a bunch of words put together that create information. And that's all that it is. I can put a series of words together and I can make you cry. I can put a series of words together and I can get you angry. That means my words have a biological and neurological effect on you.
How amazing is that?
How amazing
when you really
is that?
think about it. When
Right.
you think about it, yeah.
I can say a bunch of things. I can get your blood boiling. I can say a bunch of things that can get your heartbeat to go faster. I can say a bunch of things that can get you to relax. I can say a bunch of things and get you to smile. And so how powerful is that? And then you take that and you say, well, what are you telling yourself all day long? Like, what's going on inside of your head all day long? Is it something that nourishes you and opens you up and uplifts you and puts you in a state of peace? Or is your internal dialogue one of constant anxiety, constant what's missing, constant worry, constant hustle, constant? And so, and then if you look at what your body's telling you, because of the internal dialogue that you're having, most of us are living with our shoulders up, our stomach's tight. We breathe from the upper chest. We have this serious look on our face, but that's because of the internal chatter that just keeps on going.
Yeah. And now you're bringing on this whole other another point, is the information that we choose to, let's call it, consume every day.
Exactly. That has a tremendous effect on your brain, on your body, on your neurochemistry, on your biology. If it's negative and it's of anxiety provoking, which most of the content that you're putting in through social media is curated to put you and, to get you in alignment with your limbic system, right? I mean, news, they understand this. They put out the content in a way that stimulates that part of the brain that puts you into the fight and flight mode. They know that because when you're in fight and flight mode, you pay more attention, right? There's a lion, there's a tiger. I'm going to really become hyper focused. You become hyper focused on CNN. You become hyper focused on your social media scroll that is basically negative, like unless you've taken the time to kind of curate it yourself, most of the time you're going to get images and data and content that doesn't leave you light and bubbly. It doesn't. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. Be careful what you nourish yourself.
Yeah, and everything you just said, if we can bring it in the context of what is happening right now, where have you applied that? Because I remember the beginning of the conversation when we first started this conversation, you're saying, you know, it's been a roller coaster of emotions.
Right.
So can you share a little bit about what that roller coaster was and how you used all of those tools to manage through this?
Yeah. So I truly believe in looking at everything. I don't want to shut myself off from what's happening to the world and just say, I'm just going to look at the, lollipops and ponytails, and unicorns. There's a lot of chaos in the world. And I want to take in that content, but I want to take it in a way that's healthy. And I want to take it in a way that's intentional, meaning I will not myself obsessively focus on the problem, gobbling on, gobbling down content that is negative and chaotic. And there's a lot of that. You can spend 8 hours on CNN or, taking in what's happening and completely go into self-paralysis mode. Like you can hunker down because the world is falling apart. And so I realized that I want to take a look at both sides. Like there's a lot of chaos and there's a lot of pain, but there's also many amazing positive stories that are taking place at the same time that don't get the exposure.
Absolutely.
So what I need to do as a consumer of content, I will use my ability to curate what comes to my feed on Facebook or Instagram. I will choose intentionally what I want coming in. So I will choose positive content to come in because there's people that distribute positive content to where you can get uplifting news, you can get good stories, you can get so many things that are happening on the planet that are positive, and you surround yourself with people and with content providers that give you that. And at the same time, I take in a few snippets of what's going on, but I don't spend the whole day there. But it allows me to see the bigger picture. So, and I believe that's healthy. I want to feel sad. I want to feel angry. I want to feel like the injustices that are feeling and the feeling that comes with that. I want to get riled up because I don't want to go that, like, I don't want that to go unnoticed, but I want to recognize what's happening, the evils of the world. And I want to process that in a healthy way that allows me to take positive action. And so that's the juggling act. It's like, there's a lot of, for the beginning and when the whole COVID thing started to take, flight, I spent a lot of time listening and learning about this virus because my father has COPD, my father-in-law has COPD, my daughter has a heart issue. There were a few members in my family that are highly susceptible to this virus. And so I needed to take in as much content as possible to formulate enough clarity to be able to take positive action. Meaning, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to social distance, we're going to do that, we're not going to do this. And so, but I didn't take it in to the point that it paralyzes me.
What do you do then with let's call it the fact that we don't know what the truth is, in the sense that there's so much information that has gone out there? And I've actually spoken about this in another episode where it's like there's completely contradicting information that are coming, and it's like all of a sudden you're going, well, these are saying the opposite thing. And what do you do in the face of that? Because I get that you want to limit, I'm the same. Like I try to stay updated with what's going on. I think it's the responsible thing to do. And I want to also know what's happening. This is not about hiding from all the negativity. It has nothing to do with that. In fact, in my eyes, it's being able to stand in the eye of the storm with everything that's going on and be healthy about it, and being able to hold space for people who need space held, and to be that positive light in all of this. So But going back to the information that you're getting, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to get informed. What happens when you don't know what the truth is in terms of the information coming to you?
I think what happens is after a while, you get to know what's closest to the truth and what's not.
Mm.
So I tend to shy away from anyone that puts out content that provokes fear and anxiety and worry. And there's a bunch of people called quote unquote conspiracy theorists out there that are banking like there's no tomorrow on riling people up against all kinds of stuff. Like I've heard, like there's all kinds of theories that are going on there. Some of them half truths, some of them not so much. And so, but I tend to shy away from any type of content that spews out content, creates anxiety, fear, and worry inside of that person, and then just leaves them there with nothing to do or something to buy. And so anything that comes across like that, those have become big X's. Those are not people that I will spend a moment listening to anymore. There's like, you're gone. I will spend time listening to people that come across as like, this is the best that I know in terms of what's going on now, given the information that's out there. And they just kind of leave you with this humble, I don't know. This is where we are. You know, this is what you can do to best protect yourself. And they leave you on a note where they sound very credible. They're not trying to get you in panic mode. They're giving you something that you can actually do that sounds quite logical. And then they'll like, you know, let's touch base and see where this goes. I would rather listen to a person like that than someone says the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I don't listen to people that say the sky is falling. And there's all kinds of, you know, conspiracy theories. And this is the government, and this is this, and this is 5G, and this is that. And it's like, you know what? I don't know. And even if it is, what can I possibly do? What can I do? Like nothing. So what I put all of my attention on, what can I do? So can I reduce stress in myself and my family, because stress is something that kills the immune system? Yeah, I can. So let's practice this. Can I put in any type of vitamins or eat better that will help my immune system? Yes. So let me do that. Do masks work, and do social distancing work? If this was a real pandemic, right? Because some people saying it's not a pandemic, it's a plandemic, and it's all okay, great. Let's say, but what if it is? What if it is? So if it is, do the social distancing, washing of the hands, and wearing a mask help when you are in spaces where there's a lot of people? Yes, Costa, it does help. Great. So then try and do that most often than not. And then don't try and get riled up when someone says, when you put on a mask, you're a slave and you're being programmed and you're doing this and you're doing that. It's like, oh my God, you know, so now the mask becomes this big deal that, you know, they're taking away your freedom if you're wearing a mask. And it's like, no, wait a minute. You're taking away my freedom because you're getting me to become angry over a mask. You've just manipulated my state of being by you telling me that I should be offended because I'm wearing a mask. Now you've controlled me. And so I'm going to be careful of you. The mask is going to be quite cool. No worries with the mask. And so, but then you kind of read and you say, well, you know, keeping your mask on for prolonged periods of time when unnecessary is actually detrimental to your health because you're breathing in your own CO2, right? And so you're like, okay, so I'm not going to use the mask when I'm walking or driving, or because, you know, I see people driving with their masks with the windows open. You're like, what are you doing? You know, or they're taking a walk or they're jogging with nobody else around them but the trees, wearing a mask. You're like, see, that's a sign of fear. That doesn't sound like a rational thing to do. So to me, I'm just kind of playing. Is that when I'm going in a place where there's a lot of people, out of respect for those other people that might be looking at me as a threat right now because the anxiety level is really, really high, I'll wear a mask even though I know it doesn't really protect me. But what if I could be courteous and wear a mask, and the person that's in front of me, their anxiety level goes down because they're in their 60s and 70s, or they have an underlying issue that I may not know about. So why not me be empathetic to their cause and compassionate to their cause and wear the damn mask? If I'm going to go in and out of the grocery shop and I'm not going to have it in for, you know, for 2.5 hours on my face, what's the problem with that?
Absolutely.
Does
And
that make
so
sense?
absolutely, it all makes absolute complete sense. I mean, obviously, like I could yay or nay all sorts of stuff that you're saying in that, and anybody can. And at the same time, what I am hearing globally is you choose your sources, you choose the type of information you want to receive,
Yeah.
and you do the best that you can with your own, let's call it your own judgment.
Mhm.
You do the best that you can
Yep.
in that healthy space that you want to maintain.
Right. And there is no way that I will make a healthy, constructive, creative choice if I'm trapped in the stress response,
In fear, yeah.
in fear. There's no way.
Absolutely.
So then it's back to, again, my internal landscape has to be calm, has to be grounded, has to be open, so I can process the data and let the choice that that I'm about to make come from my prefrontal cortex and not my limbic system. Because I know that it's not going to happen. I will not make the most intuitive choice, the one that's the most centered with me, the one that's more rational, big pictured, if I'm stuck in a little picture that's being shown to me because I'm trapped in my limbic brain.
Absolutely.
And it becomes quite like you navigate the shitstorm in a very graceful way when you understand how your brain works, when you understand what people are trying to do to your brain and why, with the content that's being delivered to you. I've kind of, people say, it's an awakening process or it's a journey to awakening. You get to a place where you kind of see the world with X-ray glasses. The world that I see is not the world that I used to see before. I see the world and take in content and data and put it together in a way that I couldn't see it before. So the level of my awareness is deeper. It's more expanded and it's higher than it was before, which allows me to take in data, content, put it together in the best way possible. The only way that I can do that is if internally I'm steady and stable and grounded and open. And then I make the best possible choices and I live gracefully with the outcome. I don't know. This is probably the best that I can do. Let me see what happens. I will deal gracefully with the situations that arise that come from the choices and the actions that I've just taken. I don't know.
Absolutely. You've tapped on a good part of that was a good explanation as to why Reroot Evolving Truth is called just that, Reroot Evolving Truth, because truth in what I observe evolves. One day you know one thing and then you add something to that and then you take something out of that and then you shift it and then you act upon that and you test it and you see and you feel and you move forward that way, and it's a journey. It's a journey. And what is clear about that is that you're clear on where you want to be in all of that, how you want to feel, and from where you want to act in all of that.
Yeah. When I was pointing to one fundamental truth, right? The fundamental truth at the root is that nothing good will come from a space of contraction. I will not be aligned with my fullest potential. I will not be able to see the bigger picture. I will not be able to take positive action, the ripple effect of my energy. Like nothing good will come out of me being trapped in fight, flight, and freeze mode unless there's an immediate danger. So that really to me is like one of those non-negotiable truths. Let me go back, if I want to be more loving, more caring, more outpouring, better team player, more creative, more inspired, more intuitive, I don't know, you name it. I have to get into a state of being that becomes the environment for all those things to sprout. Like you can't argue with that. Like that's a fundamental truth that I can't argue with that. So I put all of my marbles on that and say, well, learn about this, focus on this, put your attention on and train yourself to cultivate this inner space. And then from there, everything that comes on top, those truths change. Like again, I gather data here that I thought was very credible or was very, very like, in alignment with the truth. And then you realize not so much, right? And so if you can let go of all of those things and not get trapped in a belief, and just kind of say, you know what, for now, this sounds really, really good. This sounds really helpful. This seems to be supportive of my vision. It seems to be supportive of what I want to attain, which is, being an expression of love and light and playfulness and abundance. And this is supporting me right now. The moment that it no longer supports me, then I will change it. I'm not holding on to this being truth. Like, this is truth for now. Then it's out the window because it's no longer supportive of my primary purpose, which is to be open, light, playful, that state of being that I'm going after. And so, and if this is coming in and it's not supporting me in maintaining that state, then what's the point? What's the point on me harping over this content over it's not adding anything to me, or it's not even being delivered in a way where I can see the problem, but with some sort of solution or something that can help me moderate my internal landscape so I can process the problem, right? They're just spewing out data that creates panic inside of you. And then they just leave you that way. And to me, it's like, that's not a credible source. I'm
No, that's
so sorry.
poison. It's poison.
That's poison. And I think it's very calculated because they know exactly what they're doing. I mean, I can name a few people right off the top of my head, but that's not the point. Like, you know, and look at the people and the sources that are getting the most amount of traffic now are the ones that are using that tactic to grab people's attention.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of coaches and spiritual teachers and all that kind of, you know, gurus that are doing this right now.
Absolutely. And that's, anyways, that's a whole other conversation right there.
Yeah.
I've witnessed it myself. Yeah. I've been exposed to it, and I've seen other people be exposed to it and going like, I think these people have you by the ego, or they have you by fear. Or they have you by, it's amazing when I witness that to see how well it hides, in a sense. I mean, once you're trained to see it, you can see it.
Sure.
But we've all, I think, fallen for it at one time or another where, oh, he's a spiritual leader, he must mean well, or he must be bringing really good things to my life. And maybe they do mean to. Yeah. A lot of them don't even know what they're doing, I think, when it comes to the impact that they're having on fundamentally on a person or people. And it can hide behind sources that we can deem as spiritual or enlightening or uplifting or, you know, personal development, spiritual development. So there,
I mean, it's such a powerful, it's so easy and so powerful. You know, it's like, it's 2 steps. You know, let me show you how broken you are, and let me show you how what I know and what I can do can fix you.
Yep.
And I just repeat, rinse and repeat that cycle. Let me show you how broken you are, and let me show you how I can fix you. What I know can fix you. What I know that I can tell you, or what are the tools that I've mastered and stuff like that. But I will repeatedly make sure that you know that you're broken. And as long, you know, and I can, you know, just to make you feel just not good enough. Just not good enough. Your life is not good enough. You're not good enough. And so I can just repeat that cycle over and over again. As long as you're paying attention to me as holding the key to fixing you, and you not, you know, it's like, I got you.
Kosta, don't tell everybody our secrets.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's sad. It really, really is sad. You know, that's one of the things that I made sure that, you know, when I began this journey, I didn't want to get trapped in that cycle. And you know, I think you've known me for quite, you know,
a few years now, I think.
You know, a few years now. And I want people to know my ups and downs and never put me on a pedestal. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm learning as I go too, you know.
Absolutely.
Maybe I've gathered a little bit more content than someone else, but reality is I'm a process, you know, like I'm in process and will continuously to be in process. And I just point to some fundamental truths and say, hey, pay attention to this, apply it in your life and see what happens. And if something happens in your life that tends to bring you towards where you want to go, I take no responsibility for that. You did it on your own. I was just a person that said, hey, watch this, watch that. Maybe you're not seeing this. How about this? How about that? Did you question this? So you
absolutely.
And just support people on their journey. And if they don't need me on their journey, let me tell you, that is the best feeling in the world. The moment that you don't need me anymore is the moment that I've done my job.
Or to also being in the space that you're not needed per se. It's where you want to go. I can support you in this. You could do this on your own. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, here's some tools that can help you along on your journey.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
Let me share with what works for me. Let me
yeah,
share,
yeah,
let
that's
me
it.
let me share with what I've learned. Let me share with what I've learned from the ups and the downs. Let me share what brings me the most amount of joy. Let me share with you what's opened up the floodgates for abundance in my life.
Yep.
Let me share. And if I share from an authentic space that's genuine to me, I'm hoping that the person that's listening to me will feel it, will say, I don't know, that sounds authentic. It sounds genuine. And so I only speak, this is me personally, of the things that I know, not that I believe, that I know, that I've
Yeah.
taken the time to process them, apply them, live them, experience them, become them as much as possible, and then let me share. And if it happens to help you, fantastic. And if it doesn't help and resonate with you, fantastic. Either way, it's good for me. It doesn't make a difference. And so that's all that I do. It's like just basically just share. And it's brought so much peace in my life. I don't consider myself, people say, oh, you're a teacher, you're a spirit teacher, you're a guru. You know what? That's nice. Those are all great labels. But what I do is I just facilitate. I facilitate. I help maybe expose some of the things that you're not seeing. I help, bring in some of the stuff that you need to be seeing. And then it's really about repetition, supporting, and becoming that environment, creating that space where you can grow, where my client can grow, where their company can grow, where their leadership can grow. And that's brought so much peace into my life, and it's allowed me to do what I do with ease and flow. And so that just do what comes naturally. And I would not choose any other way of doing it.
Costa, everything you said is absolutely so nourishing. I want to thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
sharing all of that with us, and I want to thank you also for doing the work that you do. It is phenomenal,
Yeah.
and I'm with you on that journey. I'm totally on the same page, and I'm just happy to have you as part of the tribe.
Happy to be part of the tribe. No, happy to
So
be. I'm, again, I go down. I'm privileged and blessed that I get to speak about these things on a daily basis, that then allow them to instill themselves in me. The more I practice, the more I share, the more I repeat, the more I put myself into that, into that, fill my life with that content. It sticks to me as well.
yep,
So, I mean, how privileged am I to be able to do this as work, which is not really work, but let's call it work.
let's call it work.
Let's call it work. But at the end, it's like, I don't know what, personally, wow, my God, how amazing is that? I get to bring these truths that I consider to be truths in my life. I share them with people. The more that I share them, I remind myself.
Yep.
The more that I remind myself, the more they get installed in me. And so, hey man, what a great way to live. Hopefully I'm making an impact. Hopefully that's, I'm bringing some lightness and some alignment into people's lives. And if, I started this journey by saying, if I change one person's life, mission complete. Like if I manage to be a source of goodness for one person, then done. Like what else do you want, right? And so that's all that I hang on to that, and humbly and gracefully just go about my day.
I think you've managed to change many, many lives at this point. I believe I can safely say that. If anybody is interested in working with Costa, you want to look him up. I will put down all of your contact information down below in the description.
I would say Facebook would be the first place to go. Uplifted Life. We have a pretty good tribe going there. I think we're close to 200. I think we just passed 240,000 followers, which is nice.
That's
So
nice.
we have a nice little community going there. There's courses coming, group coaching coming. We've pivoted onto a more of an online presence. Due to the circumstances of COVID, they've allowed us to kind of say, how can we change as a organization? So now we're bringing most of our content online and doing group coaching and leadership coaching and executive coaching online and individual coaching. So that's to come soon, very soon. So yeah, you can just check us out at upliftedlife.com, Uplifted Life on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. It's going to be there.
Excellent, excellent. And if you enjoyed this conversation, do click the like button and subscribe to the channel, the Reroot channel. We will be putting out our next episode next week. And I want to thank everybody for joining us on this. journey with Kosta. And Kosta, thank you again so much.
Thanks for having me.